I only have attained some value if I do a certain list of behaviors or implement certain things in my life and then understand that Christ makes me worthwhile, right? That had to be unlearned because I think actually that's not the point of any of the teaching. So, where I would say I am today and what I teach those that I work with is that we are love, that we are unconditional, meaning we are unconditional love, we are in the image of God. And I don't know necessarily where you're coming from spiritually, so I hope I don't step on anyone's toes here, but just like in my mind, in the scripture, in the Torah at the beginning, he says on the day where he creates man that we are very good. And so I think we've kind of been arguing with him since then about that. Like, no, we're broken. We have nothing good about us, right? Like, it seems like that has been the argument. And when we can acknowledge that we are good and that we are the image of him and he's put himself inside of us and that we are that part of us, then we're coming from a different perspective. And suddenly it's not so much about becoming enough anymore. It's more about, okay, we are partners and creators with him and with all of the universe in things that are not only valuable in this lifetime, but are eternally valuable.
This podcast is for the soul who knows there is more, the one who's been carrying it all for far too long. If you're ready to let go of old stories, to stop replaying the past and start living from your truth, you're in the right place. This is your moment to release the noise and reconnect to what's real. Welcome to Baggage Begun, Healing Hearts and Minds. I'm Tammy Machmali. Hi everyone, welcome back to Baggage Begun Healing Hearts and Minds. I'm Tammy Machmali and today I'm chatting with Kevin White, co-founder of Believe Crew. His journey of coming back to God and finding his true self is really inspiring and he is here with us today. Hi Kevin, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So good to have you here. Let's start at the beginning. Can you share a little bit about your story, a bit about yourself, especially the moment or season that made you pause and think something has to change?
Yeah, sure. My wife and I grew up in a Christian church that was fairly conservative and what I would call today like a high control religion. Of course, it didn't seem like that when you're a part of it, but it's more like, it's really focused on being together and having unity, but really from the standpoint of, well, this is the way it needs to be, right? And I would say to anyone that listens that is a part of that still, I don't have any hard feelings against anyone that's still a part of it. But it was part of my story and where we met, and it certainly has played a part in our healing journey, especially in the last 2 years since we've left. So the timing of when I knew that I needed to make a shift was in 2014, 2015, I would say was the biggest awakening period. It was really the point in time where Jamie we were having our fifth child. We have six boys. And so our fifth was coming soon. And I was also involved in the biggest project I had ever been involved with from a standpoint of my IT career. That was what I did prior to what I do today. And those two things together collaborated to add a lot of stress and to expose the chinks in the way I had lived so far. And Jamie was also understanding that she wanted to step into a different place. I think the way she has told it on other podcasts herself is something like she started to have thoughts that were aligned with her mom's thoughts before her mom got cancer or as her mom got cancer. And she was like, understanding that I have to work on my mind like my mom did or like my mom suggested. Otherwise, I'm going to be going down this road of cancer or some significant health issue if I don't deal with this. So she started to work on herself, might even started before 2014, and then she started to set some boundaries in our relationship and say, this type of like me bringing my junk and just, making it her problem, which is what I had done before, having her help me process it because I wasn't doing a good job of processing it alone. She started to put boundaries on that. So suddenly I had the person that had done all the hard work for me before wasn't as available and I had more stress. And so that was what led up to me realizing, okay, I'm going to have to change some things.
So you had a spiritual awakening.
Yes, that was the early part of it. Yes.
When we talked, you were expressing that you worked a lot in the past with people that were more logical, like more goal oriented. What happened when they started to see that you shifted from the role of someone that was hustling with the IT business and moving toward seeking God and spirituality?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. Like several different things happen. I mean, certainly our network has changed over time from as recently as a couple of years ago to having so many people that were part of a spiritual group and that had business. And it was almost like we had a group within our church that was like business people who want to embrace God, right? But at the same time, as I've come to understand after we left the last couple of years, we didn't, although we did some business together, we didn't go very deep because we were relying on the format of the church we were part of, right? So you kind of just, I mean, there's some benefit there too, in that you have the same values, right? Usually going into it. But as I've left and we've experienced other communities, I understand that we had an opportunity to go much deeper in our relationships. So back to your question, that's kind of the more recent history. But back to your question, there was a transition period where family, like the way often Jamie and I talk about this is who's in your inner circle, who's in your circle of influence, and who's kind of your, external, maybe acquaintances, right? And so that certainly changed. It was much more defined probably between 2017 going forward, maybe 2019 by the time it got a little more defined to understand who really is within our inner circle. Who are the people that are doing the work with us? Like my sister, for example, who started to really do that inner work, and other people that we had met and that we were working with. And then, yes, and then that would change over time and become more defined to where today, I think the beauty of today is that we can meet people even in Mexico that we don't completely have a usually there's some language barrier, right? Like sometimes they know some English, we know some Spanish, but we can still have amazing conversations and help them and support them and they do the same for us.
That's very interesting because I'm sure you worked with a lot of logical people that are goal oriented. What happens when they
Hmm.
start to trust their intuition or inner voices? Because there is a lot of noise. How do you define success today when you are seeking God, not the outside noises?
Yeah. It's really like the difference between doing and being, right? Like the way I think about God is that he's a part of us, and so a lot of my learning about him has been in understanding what's in me and getting more connected to myself. And maybe he's more than just a part of us or she or however you want to define the divine. It's about all of us together. And so in the past, I was listening to people that were talking about hustle and doing as the solution, and I did the same, right? Like I had an IT career where I worked with some amazing companies, but we were really focused on the doing part. And I remember kind of in the middle of my IT career, I did some consulting where we would turn over projects and we would have varying degrees of people even using it, right? And so you hustle and you do all this hard work for months or even sometimes a year, and then you turn it over to some CEO or C-level exec, and then they might not even use it. And that doesn't like that's okay because we got paid, but yet it's not really okay because there was not a deeper conversation that happened there. There wasn't joy in seeing the use always, right? And so if we change, if as I've changed, as we've changed from the hustle and the doing, the being part of things, it's just so opens so many opportunities, right? We can get joy right at the beginning of any conversation, and we can have it throughout our relationship. And some of the people that I work with weekly, even people helping me, right? Like we've developed such a deep relationship that's so close, and we can share anything almost. Yeah, that's completely different. And so my focus today is on being who I really am called to be according to the definition of who I am.
So you basically touching on the point that we are all part of God. And when we are in the present moment, we can actually feel our essence and be our true self and bring the joy and the love and the connection together as a unity.
Hmm.
Let's say someone listening right now and they are feeling totally stuck or disconnected from their purpose. They don't know what to do. They're overwhelmed. What's one small doable thing that they can try today to start reconnecting to themselves, to the divine? Is there a practice that you do, a mindset or tool that's really helped you or your clients?
Well, I think sometimes knowledge does help to like bridge the gap between where we are and where we want to be. So I start with reaching out to someone in your network or reaching out to Tammy or someone that you are aware of to, I would say, learn about a couple things: human design, and maybe even do a Gene Keys program profile, which both of those are free. So you can do that for yourself, but I would suggest finding someone that talks about those profiles and gives you insight to help teach you about you. And that should be probably, I mean, I think you could probably do that for around $500 maybe. I don't know, depending on the level of, let's say, insight you want to receive. The better and longer lasting person that's done more programs is going to give you a little more insight into that. But then I would go right into doing some healing work, honestly, healing and coaching work with someone like Tammy, and definitely pay for it because you're going to get more value out of it when we do the investment. And the biggest thing I would say here is don't put it off. Try that out soon because then it opens up to you what the possibilities might be. And a lot of like and Belief Crew, we work with entrepreneurs, and what I often tell them when we're in the sales process where we're talking to them about like what do we want to create and what kind of program is appropriate, oftentimes I'll say there's a part of this that the only thing I can tell you is we need to do it sooner than later because a lot of times I work with clients and they tell me like, "Wow, I wish I would have known this last year," right? When I made that big decision that cost me so much money. And so I think that's the main point to the in my mind to the question you're asking is get started, try some things out, learn about your gifts, learn a little bit about how others can help you. And when they do that, you're going to start to understand a little better how you can help yourself and maybe even some of the ways you help yourself.
That's beautiful because you touched on the human design. I asked someone to do that for me a long time ago, but still taking the time to learn about ourselves, who we are as a unique children of God. Each one of
Hmm.
us is different uniquely, and by being with ourselves and taking the time, we can learn more and for sure ask for help and pay for it because we are exchanging energy. So
Yes.
it's very important to pay for it. I totally agree with you. I learn not to take things for granted, and the more I invest and pay, the more value I get.
Yes.
So, what's what's one belief you had about success, healing, or spirituality that you had to completely unlearn? what do you believe now instead of it, and how has that new belief changed the way you live? Because I had to learn a lot of things in order
Yeah.
for me to be where I am today. So I'm sure you had to go through something semi like that too.
Yeah. I mean, whew, this is a hard one, but it's, I think, one of the deeper ones that, like, especially from growing up as a Christian, there's this feeling in at least the way I learned it, and I'm not going to blame anyone for this, but the way I took it, let's say, that I am basically worthless, and I only have attained some value if I do a certain list of behaviors or implement certain things in my life, and then understand that say Christ makes me worthwhile, right? So that had to be unlearned because I think actually that's not the point of any of the teaching. So where I would say I am today and where what I teach those that I work with is that we are love, that we are unconditional, meaning we are unconditional love, we are in the image of God. We are in the, at least I don't know necessarily where you're coming from spiritually, so I hope I don't step on anyone's toes here, but just like in my mind, in the scripture and in the Torah at the beginning, it's like he says on the day where he creates man that we are very good. And so I think we've kind of been arguing with him since then about that. Like, no, no, we must be, we're broken. We have nothing good about us, right? Like it seems like that's more have been has been the argument, our argument, human beings' argument. And when we can acknowledge that we are good and that we are the image of him and he's put himself inside of us and that we are that part of us, then we're coming from a different perspective. And suddenly it's not so much about becoming enough anymore. It's more about, okay, we are partners and creators with Him and with all of the universe in things that are not only valuable in this lifetime, but are eternally valuable and that are beautiful and helpful for the people that we live in this time with.
Wow, that I got really emotional when you were talking about that, Kevin, because I grew up in a Jewish Orthodox school, but because it was forced and there was no conversation or communication about that, I actually felt like God is against me.
Mm-hmm.
So years to clear and unlearn that too. And today I know that highest form of spirituality is for me being a good person. When my thoughts, my words, and my actions are one, they're congruent, then I
Mm-hmm.
know that I'm on my path and I'm doing the right thing. And I love when you said we are co-creators, part
Mm-hmm.
of God, so we are love and we are so much more because He created us as His children. And it doesn't matter what faith we are. I never asked you what faith you are, and you never asked me, but
Mm-hmm.
we
Yeah.
are talking language. And it's the language of unity, it's the language that there is no duality. And God for me is healing because when I seeked Him, I remember he was there even in my hardest time. I always turn to him. Today he's in everything that I do. I ask for his
Mm-hmm.
help every moment, if it's for my business, my food, my family, my daughters. And I was thinking, how lucky are your boys that you get to relearn and pass to the next generation the healing and this true viewpoint that we are united and we are co-creators of God, no matter what religion we are,
Yes.
because God is healing. And when we have this faith, for me, I'm not alone. And we don't have to carry everything or figure it all out by ourselves because when we have God, we are not alone. And there is a
Mm-hmm.
greater wisdom guiding us. I'm asking His help all the time when I write material, when I guide people through my process. And He's holding us even when we cannot see Him.
Mm-hmm.
And that trust, for me, soften our limiting beliefs, all this dark
Mm-hmm.
trauma, fear,
Mm-hmm.
quiet my overthinking because I can ask for him to close the door and open space for the real me, the real healing. And it helps us, I think, to breathe again and know that we can restart any moment, because this
Mhm.
has the safety to let go of all the past and return to who, to be aligned with what the creator created us as a whole. We are not broken, we are whole, we are loved, and we are supported by him. So thank you for reminding me. I got really emotional when you
Mhm.
started talking.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate what you just said and the way you processed it. That was beautiful.
When we had our initial talk, you told me about letting go of shame, that for you, one of the emotions that you had to clear in order to move forward was the shame. What did that really look like for you?
Yeah.
How did you release it?
Okay. Well, the biggest tool to release shame is to share what we consider to be our wrongs with others. Shame cannot live in the light, right? It cannot live in in the space of, like, it only lives when it's hidden, when it's not dealt with. And so, I mean, that's why Alcoholics Anonymous, for example, right? Like, why they come together and share stories, because we need to share the things that we, even our own condemnations. So the more we share that, and that I had a podcast called Business Addicts about my addiction story. If anyone's interested, that whole thing is recorded with Jamie, my wife, and I. We did it over a series of, I think it was 2.5 years maybe, where we started with our stories. We added in other couples that had overcome addiction, and we addressed it as a couple. We did talk to some individuals, but we really addressed the subject as couples, because what usually happens is if you've got some type of addiction, or let's say a cycle of sin, or however you want to define it in your life, that is coming from trauma, and you are going to seek out a partner usually that to a certain extent enables that. Or when you start out, if it's a problem before you get married, you, you kind of make some agreements going into it. And then even if it were to come up while you're married, I think the same thing's going to apply. Like, we're kind of attracted to energy that's different than us. A lot of addicts are attracted to people that would never be addicts, right? And so they offer this kind of this stillness, this spirituality that's different than ours. And meanwhile, most addicts are not acknowledging their spiritual gifts. They're not understanding what their purpose in life is to a certain extent, right? And that's what breeds that ongoing shame. So let me separate just for a second. My core wound is shame. Other addictions may have different core wounds. I haven't checked into that. But a lot of the things that I had to address, and probably will even have to address in the rest of my life, are the ways that I collect or shame myself, right? And then getting into a place where I haven't dealt with that, I haven't acknowledged that, I haven't been honest with myself about why I'm doing that. And so it builds up. And then, but when we start to share it and let it out, then it goes away, and it can't stay there when we share it. And when we change too, right? Like, if we were to share and not change, then it's we're recreating it.
You touched so many good points that usually our shame and our addictions cannot live in secrets. So when you go to the 12-step program, they talk to you about the first step, admitting whatever you're
Mhm.
doing. It's your addiction, it's whatever discord you have. So bringing the awareness always brings a layer of healing. And then coming to believe, it's the second step. Then asking for help and talking about that. I mean, when I work with people, usually shame is the last emotion before we heal trauma, because the emotion
Mhm.
sits on top of the trauma. And when we release them, the trauma start to surface up. And it's interesting that most of the books about healing talk about, if you want to manifest, clear the shame, because somehow the shame, it's keeping you with the self-loathing, with a self-doubt. So you cannot move forward while you are actually having this imposter syndrome that you don't believe in yourself. But when you
Mm,
let go of the shame and you forgive yourself, you are allowing yourself to step into the path that it's your higher self, your higher path, the path that God intended you to be, so you can share your contribution and your gifts. And another thing is that I don't know if we attract opposites when we are addicts. I think we actually attract the people that either addicts like, or we attract the people that guide us through this cosmic energy to become better version of ourselves. You know, they push all our triggers. I'm sure
hmm
you can visit with your wife. Like, she will say, I don't know. Usually it starts with romance and how this person is wonderful, and then we have the second stage that we're getting to know each other and we're deepening it. And I'm like, we see all the defaults, and then the resentment stage, and then the stage that I have to figure out my individuality. And then we actually start doing things that are as individual, that are part of our gifts, not a meshment, not relying on other people, finding the clear voice of our intuition within ourselves.
mm, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, do you believe that our spiritual gifts become clearer when we heal, as we heal? Was there something you needed to let go of emotionally or energetically to really step into your purpose, who you are today? And there was something that you had to let go to become the person that you are right now?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I Before I get to that, I want to make one comment about what you said. Very well said. I agree very much with you that shame is underneath a lot of other emotions. And that's why, yes, some of those really heavy emotions like dread and horror and I don't know, a bunch of other stuff can sit on top of shame and hide it. And I've totally had the same experience. And so, yes, those were all necessary things for me to let go of. I think it was the road of letting go of all those things and all of my limiting beliefs that allowed me to see what my gift was. And I appreciate the way you reframed, the way we attract someone. I think that's much better way to say it, the way you said it. And thinking about as we work through, like even attracting people in our process of healing that are the right fit for us and that help us see not only how to heal but how to be healers ourselves. That was my process. I don't know if that answered your question fully, but to me it's just like the onion concept, right? When you are coping in whatever coping you've got in life, I almost feel like we're all to a certain extent coping. I know that I still do sometimes today. That there's it's just all this heaviness in our body, and we're not connected to the gifts, the intuition, like you say. But after we understand that the coping doesn't give us anything, then it's given us zero fruit, and it's not helped. We haven't moved forward in that state. Then we start to address the real core things that we need to in honesty of where we are, letting those things go, and then more and more we connect to our intuition and we understand that we have a clear yes and no in life. We can listen to that yes and no, and it can make a big difference in the outcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much. I know that you had to learn to trust your inner voice, and I know it's not easy because it took me years to listen to all these voices. Sometimes, even when I work with people, all of a sudden the grandma will appear or someone from the past will appear. And for many years, I avoided that. I used to talk and close my eyes because I was hearing and seeing everything. And when I go, even now, crowded places, sometimes I just have to close my eyes because I see too much, I feel too much, and I just don't want to grab the energy because then I am grabbing things from other people and I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I see that you are trusting your intuition. Even the fact that the way we met, there are no accidents, there are no mistakes. What helped you to stay grounded and keep going? Because you switched from a career that it's all logic into this. spirituality. Even with my art business, I was always spiritual. Like from very early age, I knew that I'm gonna die if I don't hold God's hand. For
Hmm.
me, it was what happened with you that I mean, how you keep yourself grounded, listen to your inner voice, trust yourself, uh, having to earn and bring money and being the business that you are.
Well, I think two things. The first thing that comes to me is, understanding more about my past lives and understanding that for a long time I used the same methodology, like multiple lifetimes of hustling and logic and only connecting to my brain instead of my mind. And so that's part of it. The other thing is that this is my calling for this lifetime. I just feel like so strongly that, yeah, like in this lifetime, I I am here to overcome those things that I was struggling with before, and also to help others, especially my family, to overcome that way of coping in life. And so, yeah, that's part of it. The other thing that is a big part of it too is the people that I had to support me along the way. And my wife, she's the one that had the vision for our business, and she's very much a networker. I'll certainly introduce anyone who wants to meet her. And and so she naturally creates networks of people.
I want to meet her. I want to.
Yeah, okay. We'll get you in touch.
Yeah.
She connects a lot of people. And so I've had just a huge group of people to help me that I've been able to help too, but also that we've collaborated on and in creating our business. So I would say there's a group of, if I counted them up, probably a core group of 10 to 15 people that I've really done some deep work with, and probably five that I've worked with over a long period of time that really had an impact in my life. And that's why I believe so much that that's the whole concept of Belief True is this is a team thing that we need to acknowledge that we need, like, last year was a breathwork year for me, a somatic work year, right? Like I needed to reconnect to my body, and this year the fruits of doing that are here. Like I'm connecting, even recently I've been connecting to some of the parts of myself that I left behind at 3 years old, around feeling fully and being able to connect to the present moment and to someone else that needs help in that moment. I've been able to do that in healing sessions for multiple years, but I haven't always been able to do it with Jamie when there's a little more stress or pressure or she needs something that I can't fully see, right? And inside the family, sometimes that was more of a problem. So there's like, it's, yeah, building the foundation of love, and then it's all the work on top of that to keep stepping into that. And certainly all the people I worked with in varying different methodologies have been a huge, huge part of my story.
Just so you know, family are the most challenging people to help to heal and guide.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed hearing that you are understanding about the past life, how important it is to understand what happened before, because this is not the first time that we are here. And this is actually how I start when I guide people through the baggage begun process. I show them what was their past life, what was their role, because we have
Hmm.
still triggers, memories that come with us into this lifetime. And I think it's very important when they understand that these memories might be still lingering. And when we understand what's the calling in this lifetime, it makes it so much easier. It is as if a curtain being open and you allow yourself to welcome the new you without the old mental and emotional baggage from lifetimes ago, generations ago. Ask for help if you need to do that. So, for someone just starting their healing spiritual journey, maybe they're unsure, they are doubting that. What's one thing you would want them to hear from you today?
I would suggest not only what we've already talked about, but also getting connected to your body through especially if you're a generator in human design, connecting to your body and understanding how your body has messages. And I think there was a thought that went away as part of this, but um, there's so much that we're ignoring and not listening to inside of us. And like I think about the body as it's always doing its job. It is giving us information, and it gives us pain and certain things that let us know what's going on inside of us. And if we don't listen to that, if we try to cover it up, then we're not actually dealing with the root. So I think that's a good way to get started, is to do something like yoga or meditation or something to get, or somatic work, to get connected to our body and receive the messages we've missed or we are missing before, because we live, at least in the US, we're coming from a culture where we're not embracing that. We're not listening. And so if you want to start healing, I'd start by hearing and connecting to what your body has to say already, understanding, hey, I've missed this, and start forgiving yourself for how you haven't listened to yourself.
Basically, listening to your body, listening to your heart, listening to the voices that coming inside you. Sometimes you need to do this grounding work when you just walk by yourself and just listen. It might be in the gym, it might be in the yoga room, in the when you do the breath work. I totally agree with you. And I think for me it was for many years painting. I used to paint and not understand why it's like a calling. For me it was
Mm-hmm.
probably because even when I was painting, I was writing so many messages and then covering them. It was for me like me bringing my voice out. And now that where I am today, I understand that movement is very important. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're aware of yourself, just move forward. No matter how small it is, it's gonna lead one thing gonna lead to something else. And seeking other people, one person lead to the other one, like we did today. I think a very special connection. Thank you so much, Kevin, for today. I'm so glad you're here and you shared your heart and your journey. I know so many listeners are going to feel inspired by what you shared. To everyone that's listening, if something Kevin said stirred something inside you, you can connect with Kevin and explore his work. Your website is www.believecrew.com, and I'm going to put it in the show notes so they can find it easily. And if you're feeling called to clear your mental and emotional baggage, you can call me, and I would love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and see you next week. Kevin, thank you so much. I'm grateful to you for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you. Thank you for having me. That was a privilege.
If you're curious and want to dive deeper, you are in the right space. I ask you to look within for all the things that you want to do, be, and have. Join me at the Baggage Begun Healing Hearts and Minds podcast with new episodes every Wednesday as we discover the path towards healing and transformation.